for this session. This promises to be a very exciting session, and we're going to be talking about predicting the trends, the areas and the way forward for L&D professionals in Africa. As I mentioned earlier, this session is slated to last for approximately 90 minutes. We'll be on time and we will be in and out of here before you know it. Now let's turn our attention on how to use Zoom, which is the platform we are on during this session. For your convenience and the convenience of other participants, since this is a webinar, your microphones have been muted and you don't have access also to your cameras. Your microphones and cameras have been muted by default. Let's talk about how to communicate during this session since your microphones and cameras have been muted. Just beneath the midsection of your screen, you will see the panel of icons like the one displayed on the presentation that you're viewing now. The first icon from the left is the chat icon. And so you can click on the chat icon to communicate during this session. Please ensure that when communicating with the chat, you are sending to all panelists and attendees. So as you can see on the screen, there is a little drop box just on the chat panel that allows you to choose who you will be sharing your chats with. So please ensure that you click on chatting with all panelists and attendees. Please give me a second. I believe I'm having a bit of a technical hitch. Please give me a second. Let me take care of that and I shall be back shortly. So communicating with chat, as we said, it's very important for us that you ensure that your text can be seen by panelists and attendees. I'm so sorry, technology seems to be letting me down this afternoon. Please give me a second and let me just stop sharing and restart this presentation. So sorry. While we are doing that, I can see that we have some new people who have joined. We have an Enitan Okeji. I hope I pronounced that name right. We have an Enitan Okeji from Nigeria, and we are also looking forward very much to he says that they say that they are looking forward to learning new perspectives on L&D. And Mehdi says that he's from Tunisia. Where are you from? So if you can share with us, how many countries are represented in this chat box? How many countries are represented in this webinar with us today? So please share with all panelists and attendees going back to the presentation so that your chats can be seen by all panelists as well as attendees. We would be very grateful if you would do that. There's also a button to raise a hand if you have a specific thing or topic or question that you'd like to ask. You can use the raise your hand button to do that. And we also have the question and answer button. When you click on that button, that is also an avenue by which you can ask questions. So you can either use the chat button or the Q&A button to ask a question. And with the Q&A button, there's a little text box and you can type your question into the text box of the Q&A pane, and we will see that and also be able to answer your questions from there. I would like now at this point, and I think that this is the point that we have all been waiting for, I would like us to do a brief introduction of our panelists. And as I mentioned earlier, we have such an esteemed group of panelists with us. And so in no particular order, I would like to introduce Wale, our panelist, to you. And I will start with Wale Ajiboye, who is an Associate Director of Acumen West Africa. And Wale is a social entrepreneur with over 19 years experience in enterprise development, not-for-profit management, and social innovation. He is passionate about entrepreneurship and has immersed himself in helping entrepreneurs develop and discover their creative genius, innovate, and think globally. Wale currently works as an associate director with Acumen West Africa, where he oversees the implementation of the Acumen Academy in the region, and he also supports the business development drive of Acumen West Africa. Wale has worked on a number of seminal enterprise development projects, including the Chivas Regals, the Venture Fund, and HP Life's projects in Nigeria. Wale, you are very welcome. And thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Baaba. Looking forward
Thank
to
you,
it.
Wale. Such a pleasure to have you with us, and we are honored to have you with us. The next panelist, and I told you that this is a panel of such heavyweights and heavy hitters, is Thokozile Lewanika Mpupuni. I hope I pronounced that right. Thokozile's mission is to create socio-economic impact and to transform Africa's unrealized potential through liberating leadership greatness in individuals, teams, and organizations. She exists to inspire and to empower. She lives her mission through speaking, coaching, writing, and in her corporate role as the group head of leadership, learning, and talent for the Absa banking group. In her work, Thokozile combines analytical rigor and insights from scientific training. She has a PhD in molecular and cell biology, wow, from the University of Cape Town, with accelerated consulting capabilities, and she has experience in working for McKinsey and Company and experience in blue chip corporates. She's worked in Novartis, Discovery Limited, and Absa. And she uses all these experiences to deliver game-changing performance in individuals, teams, and organizations across Africa. She also trained as an ontological coach with the Newfield Network. Her motto that drives her is delivering that which people thought impossible because human potential is truly abundant. Thokozile's interests include writing, history, music, art, reading widely, and observing nature. You were so very welcome, Thokozile, and thank you so much for honoring our invitation. We are so pleased to have you with us this
Thank you
afternoon.
very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you so much. So the next heavy hitter, and you're in for a treat, my dear participants, because the next person that we have with us on our panel this afternoon, for me it's afternoon, sorry, so I keep on referring to afternoon, is Miss Abna Kessewaa Brown, who is the principal of the National Banking College in Ghana. And Abna Kessewaa Brown joined the National Banking College in August of 2016 as the principal and a member of the governing council of the same college. She has over 33 years experience, combined experience in accounting, finance, technology, learning, and people and transformation strategies across continents. Prior to joining the National Banking College, she worked with Standard Chartered Bank for over 4 years in numerous capacities as the People Team Leader for West Africa Shared Services, and joined the Organizational Learning Team in 2006, where she served the West Africa region and later the Americas region from 2013. Abna is a founding member of the Committee for Cooperation between Law Enforcement Agencies and Banking Community and serves on various boards, including Ghana's Central Tender Board, and also is a former editorial member for ICAG magazine and Ghana's Amalgamated Trust. She's also a member of the Institute of Directors Ghana and also the Executive Women's Network, as well as the Association for Talent Development. Thank you so much for making the time to join us, Kessewaa, and we are so pleased to have you with us on this call, on this webinar. Kessewaa, I suspect that your microphone is on mute.
I tried to unmute it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you very much. I don't even recognize myself in that introduction.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we are so pleased to have someone like you on our panel. Last but definitely not least on our panel is Robert Akoto Amoafo. Robert Akoto Amoafo is a human rights advocate with over 10 years working experience in the field of human rights and human development. He's a communication, organizational, and personal development expert with a specified focus on corporates and non-governmental organizations. He is certified by the International Finance Corporation and the Learning and Performance Institute as a trainer. In 2012, he joined the Human Rights Advocacy Center as a programs manager, and eventually rose to the top of the organization as the executive director in 2013. Whilst at HRAC, Mr. Amoafo focused on building strong organizational structures and systems, developed and implemented strategies which made human rights issues everyday issues, and created an open platform for stronger engagement with government agencies, development partners, and diplomatic missions in Ghana. In 2015, Mr. Amoafo was appointed the technical advisor to the Linkages Project, which was implemented by the FH1360 and funded by USAID Ghana. At FHI 360, Robert worked with a vibrant team to move HIV programming from a focus on prevention to treatment. Mr. Amoafo also worked with the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection as a communications consultant from May 2016 to June 2017. He contributed to strengthening the external communications of the ministry and also contributed to increasing the online presence of that ministry. He is the board chair of two organizations, Solace Initiative and Hope Alliance Foundation. He's an advisory board member of the African Network of Entrepreneurs and the president of Alliance of Equality and Diversity. As a leader, he has risen fast on his career ladder through hard work, commitment, and strong values, and a passion for developing and empowering people. Robert is a graduate of the University of Ghana, Legon, and holds a bachelor's degree in English and Information Studies. He also holds a certificate in conflict management, gender and human rights from the Center for Conflict Resolution, Cape Town, South Africa. Mr. Amoafo is currently the immediate past country director of Amnesty International in Ghana, and he was the youngest country director while he was at the organization globally. Robert, we're so pleased to have you with us, and thank you so much for honoring our invitation and taking the time to be with us on this panel.
Thank you for having me, Baaba. I'm so excited to join you this afternoon and to be part of this discussion. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Robert. So I think that our panelists are probably tired of looking at my face solely and hearing just my voice. So let's just dive straight into it. I think that from the expectations, I can see that we all seem to be of the same mind, and we are all on the same page in saying that COVID-19 has changed the face of the world. It has changed the face of various industries worldwide, and the L&D industry has not been untouched by COVID. And the one thing that I think that business people all over the world will agree on is the fact that COVID-19 has accelerated the rate of digitization as well as e-learning and moving things from face-to-face to virtual due to all the lockdowns and restrictions and work from home that we have been subjected to in 2020. And looking at the news from all over the world, the trend does not seem to be changing, at least for the first quarter or the first half of 2021. I will not even go into depth in depth about the economic and financial constraints and changes that COVID-19 has posed. And so we will go straight into it. COVID has changed the game. The world of work is changing. The L&D landscape may be changed forever. As we know it, it may be changed forever. And so this is a question that I'd like to pose to all of my panelists this morning, this afternoon. And the question simply is this: from where you sit and from your expert view and opinion, what do you think happened to what did you see happening to most organizations in 2020? And what are the lessons that you think they've learned from 2020? And what are the things that you think will be changing in the world of work in the L&D industry, both for L&D professionals and L&D teams and organizations as well in 2021? So I think I'll start with Wale, then I'll move to Thokozile, then I'll come to Kessewaa, and then I'll ask Robert finally to share his views. So Wale, whenever you're ready, please share with us.
All right. Thank you, Baaba.
Before Wale starts his presentation, so sorry, Wale. Before Wale gives his submission, I'd like to remind you all that you can easily let your views be known, and please contribute to this discussion through the chat box. We will be very eager to read all the contributions that you have as our panelists are giving their submissions. Thank you so much. And Wale, over to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Baaba. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of wisdom in the group chat. I've seen a lot of colleagues and senior mentors who are also joining us. So it'll be good to see their contribution into this conversation as well. I think the first thing for me is COVID has given us an opportunity to do proof of concept, because it's not really new for all of us. We've always known future of work has always been a conversation we've always had. The technology team across the globe has always worked some sort of remote working. And so we've always seen it. I think what COVID has done as, propelled, like what you said, has pushed us forward to think creatively about how do we change. But we're already getting to the peak of some of the things we're already doing. So I think despite all the losses that we're seeing and the, the tension of, people who are losing jobs and loved ones, I think COVID has also been a gift to the world to let us reimagine a new and a better world, particularly as we think about the inequality we've created in the world. And when we say inequality, we also see it in learning, because suddenly we can all see it, whether at secondary school, at primary school level, at university level, we are seeing the gap and the space. So what is the big lesson and how are we adapting to it? In my own case, I think that it has been an opportunity for us to reinvent our programs, reinvent what we do, our program, our training, and rethink how do we get, understand some of the needs that are there for learners. We've seen different things, different level of innovation that has come in, whether, people have gone onto Zoom or they've gone into audio learning. There have been so many incredible innovations coming out. So I think for me, I think COVID has taught us a big lesson to quickly think about how do we think forward. What is working? I always say that I hear these words, the enemy of great is good. And so what are the things that we're doing really well that we can move forward, right? So for me, the gift of technology that we're seeing, the innovation that we're seeing, how, the learners are changing, we're seeing the different use cases. I think it's very interesting for me. It's been an eye-opening. And I think during the course of this conversation, share a bit more about some of the things that we are learning within our organization. Thank you. You're mute, Baaba.
So sorry. Sorry. Thank you so much, Wale. And I'm sure that I picked up a few points and I'm glad you mentioned that you come back, because I picked up a few points that I'd like to follow up from your submission. But before we do that, can we hear from Thokozile, please?
Thank you, Baaba. I think I share a lot of Wale's experience in terms of the big shifts that have happened and the lessons that have been learned. I think two things that I would add. As learning professionals, I think us and other human capital professionals have always been cognizant of the importance of mental, physical, and emotional resilience in employees, in addition to skills. So I think for a long time, a lot of learning functions in the world have built strategies that are very focused on technical skills and maybe leadership skills. I think the current world of work has shown us the importance of mental and emotional resilience, and the importance of organizations actually investing in building those skills and capabilities within their employees. Because at this point in time, every single employee is going through the trauma of COVID-related impact, some of which is health-related, some of which is emotional, some of which is mental, in addition to dealing with the normal demands of their job. So I think what we've seen with COVID, where a lot of learning functions are being a lot more deliberate in doing stuff around mental well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, is something that needs to stay with us and should stay with us for a long time, because the impact of what is happening now will be felt for a long time. So for me, that's definitely been a lesson and a trend, but it's also been, as Wale said, an opportunity that it raises the profile of the importance of these skills. I think the second thing that I would add that COVID has done for learning functions is to show that investing in creating the right mindsets in your organization is sometimes as powerful or even more powerful than investing in making sure you have the right skills. Because if you look at all of the mindset challenges people are going through, whether it's adjusting to working from home, whether it's a manager having to adjust to supervising a team that he can no longer see, whether it's having to really quickly pivot your career because your skill set is maybe obsolete given the COVID-related impact on your organization, and you need to be quickly reskilled for a different career path. All those sorts of things have also heightened the importance, because the people who have been able to unlearn quickly and start learning quickly are the people who are actually experiencing this moment as a reimagining and a rebirth rather than a personal trauma. So those are two things that I would contribute so far.
Thank you so much for your insightful contributions. And I will quickly move to Kessewaa. But before I do that, I did have a comment coming into the question and answer box that said, good points by Wale, and that was from Ishmael Lomote. So thank you so much, Wale and Thokozile, for your insightful submissions. We will now hear from Kessewaa, and after her, we'll listen to Robert.
Thank you very much, and I want to apologize for my hoarse voice. The key thing about COVID, I would like to fast backwards. In 2008, the world experienced a crisis. And it was during those periods that most international organizations started looking at reducing their travel costs and their face-to-face, and sort of started that shift. Unfortunately, I think in Africa, because that crisis didn't really affect us too much, life continued as usual. However, if we fast forward to COVID, this actually, which has been repeated, has actually fast forwarded the things that probably may have started in 2008. So you realize that some of the international companies probably have had a softer landing than some of our local organizations, which of course impact us as L&D professionals, because whatever systems we are working in is how we will be able to translate what we need to do, particularly in the logistics space, and particularly in when we come to technology and all the things that are needed to go with it. So for us and for me, I believe that one of the key important things that I would say has happened, or some of the lessons that we have learned, is I think that the executives are looking at L&D with different eyes. We are strategic partners, and our role is really strategic. Though we work in the space of HR, it's not the same work, and some HR professionals don't understand learning from the strategic point of view. And I believe that this COVID has given learning and development professionals the opportunity to actually either drive that strategy that is in place or support the executives in recreating a new strategy. And I think that is brilliant for a big opportunity for us to showcase this as a function. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kessewaa. Thank you so much for that insightful contribution. I'd also like to remind all of our participants in this webinar that we would love you to communicate with us. The panelists would love to hear your views as they give their submissions. So please feel very free to make use of the question and answer as well as the chat box. We would love to hear from you. Please let us know if something a panelist says strikes a chord with you. Please do not hesitate to share with us. So last but not least, for this round of questions, I will move to Robert. Robert, what is your take on this?
Thank you very much, Baaba, and thank you to Rainbow Consult for this amazing opportunity for all of us to learn, especially for bringing something for me. I think that for bringing learning and development, especially to our attention, for us to concentrate as professionals on the continent. Because of course, we have had learning and development on the continent for a while, but really making it a focus and talking about it like this has been a good work that you have done. And we say a very big thank you to Rainbow Consult and L&D Africa.
Thank you
for
so
me,
much, Robert.
I think the push, the big thing that has happened is the forced push that has happened to L&D professionals to be innovative. You know, the idea that within the time, like as was mentioned earlier by my senior colleagues, within the period when we were doing all these trainings face-to-face and all of that, I don't think there was so much mixture of online learning and learning the tools that required us to use these things to do online learning. But with coming in of COVID, now we have seen the need to combine. I am in Pretoria at the moment, and some of my colleagues are not with us in a course because they can't get certain visas and they have to innovate. Now, those who are teaching and doing the course have to innovate and see how they can bring them into the classroom. And I think that this is an opportunity for all of us to really learn these issues around the IT. There are learning professionals who do not know how to use Zoom, who may not know how to use WebEx, and all these tools that we used before, like was mentioned, were all used before. But currently, a lot of people are struggling, and for us, it's a big learning opportunity. I think now that we have learning and development as a key thing for all of us to discuss, research is a key thing, and that I know that has pushed us to do, because once we know that COVID has come in and we need to do things and make things happen, it means that we must constantly research and innovate and to bring things to the doorstep of our clients, our students, and whoever. Now, if you look at, let's not talk about ourselves only as learning and development professionals, but also the schools. Now, schools also have to innovate and make changes so that they can give some education to their students. And all these things are lessons for us as L&D professionals to start looking at how can we constantly, as we go ahead, innovate, research, and bring what we believe can help. Now, we are talking about trends that are supposed to happen in 2021. What are the research that has been done that are African, that can feed this discussion fully? So for me, these are the things that hit me when this topic came to mind, and the question of how are we changing, what has happened to us. It is the reawakening and the attention that we need to focus and make this a key professional area that we are looking at. Like any other profession that many of us are already in, all of that, we should constantly look at how we can grow this profession, notwithstanding what may come in the future. We are ready to meet all these challenges that may come.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much to all my 4 lovely panelists. I have learned so much already, and I will talk about that in my summation, but I've learned so much already from this one question that I have asked that I cannot wait for what is coming. But we do have some engagement on the chat box, and we have Nonye. I hope I pronounced that right. Apologies if I brutally massacred your name, but who says, Nonye says, very true. Learning has cut costs and broken down geographical barriers. I believe they meant to say COVID has cut costs and broken geographical barriers. And I also have another comment from Caroline, who says, organizations are discovering how cheap it can be, yet learning has continued. Key opportunities to leverage on innovation and exploring new ways of delivering and facilitating learning. I think that that's a very brilliant submission. Thank you so much. Because it's funny, in our office, we were talking about how online learning has made it very, very affordable for organizations to engage in learning programs and workshops and training programs because costs have been cut. Hotel bills, food, transportation, etc., are no longer being paid because of the shift to virtual. And actually, I do have a question for, I believe this question will be for Thokozile, because there's a question from Adora Dakwa who says, how can L&D professionals build emotional and mental resilience of staff since we are working from home? And I believe it was Thokozile who mentioned emotional and mental resilience and the need to concentrate on that. So that's the question. How can L&D professionals build the emotional and mental resilience of staff since we are all working from home?
Yeah.
So whenever you're ready.
Sure, thanks, Baaba. And I think that's a great question. I think as L&D professionals, we all know that learning happens best in context. Yeah, that's the most powerful learning that is possible, rather than attending necessarily training programs, etc. So I'll respond in 2 ways. I think the first way is when you focus on something, anything, you actually will find a way to do it. Yes. So I think what first needs to happen is the learning team needs to make a compelling business case for the importance of mental and emotional resilience skills, right? So you have to first focus on it. Because in my experience, building mental and emotional resilience skills doesn't just take the investment in giving people the tools, because you need tools for mental resilience and emotional resilience or EQ training. So there's the tools that give you a foundation, that foundational understanding of how you can manage yourself, what's your makeup, what's the stuff that happens because we're just made that way physiologically, but how can we override that? Stuff like the amygdala hijack and stuff like that. Is you don't have to live your life reacting to everything that happens to you. Yes, you can live your life by shaping what happens to you, which is almost like the foundation of emotional resilience, right? Is that this stuff happens to me, but I happen to my life. So I think that the first one is to create a foundational training, and there's a lot that's available also on free on the web. On that, even just basic concepts like the amygdala hijack, basic concepts like the iceberg principle, right? Of don't just deal with behavior, look what sits underneath in the individual. These are basic concepts. But once people get that concept, the real work for me starts with embedding that as part of the language of the organization and part of the culture. So you become a culture and an organization that asks about mental well-being, that asks about emotional well-being, and then you create other practices around that so that it then becomes a part of your culture. So I would say if it's something that you're looking into, the first step is what's the foundation, right? Foundational training and insights we can provide to our employees. And then beyond that is, okay, then what's the additional stuff we can put into our practices, the way we teach our managers to check in, the way we talk to each other, the language in the organization, and then it will become part of your cultural fabric. So that would be like my sort of shortened answer. But yes, I write a lot on this as well. So we can connect offline if you'd like more detail, but this for me would be the essence.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you. And to be lucky, she's opened her doors and I think her emails, and she says we can connect with her offline. So please, she asked for it, so you can flood her. She's not giving me permission to say you can flood her, but I'm putting her on the spot and saying you can flood her with your emails. And we have a few more comments, but before we go to that, because we are talking about moving the shift to virtual and moving online, we just have a poll that I would like us to answer now. And so you'll be seeing a poll on your screens very shortly. And what's the poll? The question that is being asked is that, to what extent are you and your organization holding meetings, workshops, and seminars, etc., online currently? Oh, wow. And so we have 4 options. We hold all our meetings and workshops, etc., online. We hold a large majority of our meetings, workshops, and seminars, etc., online. We hold only a minority of our meetings, workshops, etc., online. And the last one saying that we hold none of our meetings, workshops, and seminars online. So I'm going to give you a few minutes so that you can vote in this poll. And while we are doing that, I'll just be going through a few of the comments that we have. And I'd like to remind you that because your microphones and your videos have been muted, please communicate with us through the chat box or through the question and answer box that you have. So please communicate, do well to communicate with us using the chat box, also the question and answer box. So we have a comment here from Caroline, who says that, I also like what Thokozile shared about investing in creating the right mindset. Excuse me, spot on. Thinking needs to be front and center of real change. Enjoying the discussion. Thank you so much for your comment. I must say, I am also really enjoying this discussion and the insightful questions and comments that are coming. Please keep them coming. We love to hear from you. I also have another comment from Olushola Jegede, who says, for trainers, more opportunities as market has expanded. You can train people beyond your borders. Yes, I think that I see people agreeing with this comment. This has been one of the greatest, shall I say, dare I say that this is the silver lining that we have in this whole COVID thing, as this whole COVID pandemic as L&D professionals, is that now borders and boundaries mean absolutely nothing. So I have another comment from Cynthia Kudo, who says, don't live your life by reacting to everything that happens to you. Very apt, Thokozile. So thank you so much. I have a Diana who's saying that we need to push for stronger collaboration with IT professionals as digital learning has come to stay, and we need their support to develop seamless learning experiences. Oh my, that is so true. And that is so spot on. I see that about 65% of us have voted, and I'm going to keep this poll on for maybe another 30 seconds, after which I shall end it and we will look at what our results were. So May Morris Cowell says, excellent submission by all panelists. But as learning is quickly moving online in both organizations and schools, how do we ensure that a chunk of the African population is not left behind, especially those living in areas where access to internet connectivity is expensive or not easily accessible? May, it's like you read my mind, because that is one of the questions that I have for my panelists. So maybe we will dive straight into that, answering that question once the poll is closed. And I am about closing my poll now. Just giving us, I see that people are still voting, so just giving us a few more seconds. So I shall just move on to other questions. And I have a question here, and I believe it's to all panelists. How do you deal with online fatigue? Because that's the critical challenge we would have to deal with in relation to online training. My panelists, which of you would like to take this as I close the polling? I don't know if any of my panelists would like to take this. How do you deal with it? Yeah?
Well, I've responded to Ishmael. This is Kess. In the beginning, it was really exciting. I mean, and there were so many topics that were bombarding us. But eventually you realize that there were some who were just trying their hands at it, and then there were some that were really good. For me, I just say, pick and choose training that will really make a difference. You can't do them all, you know. So just make sure that you pick what will really make a difference at the moment that you are, you know, and whatever you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kessewaa, for that answer. I hope your question has been answered, Ishmael. And I'm just about to publish the results of our poll. And so we have 31% of us saying that we hold all our meetings, workshops, and seminars, etc., online. Then we have actually, I believe, the majority saying that they hold a large, so that tells me that we are doing a bit of work from home and some people are still doing a bit of face-to-face. They hold a large majority of their meetings, workshops, and seminars online. We have 18% saying that they hold only a minority of their meetings, workshops, and seminars online. And we have 4% saying that none of this is actually online. They're still doing face-to-face. So I feel like these are it's very interesting for us to see what is actually happening in other parts of Africa. And so thank you all so much for sharing your insights with us. And we will move straight on to the question that was asked. I believe that there was a question about lack of access to technology. And since that is one of my questions prepared, I think that, yes, how do we ensure that the chunk of the African population is not left behind, especially those living in areas where access to internet connectivity is expensive and not as easily accessible? So I would like to know what Wale and Robert think about this. So maybe I'll start with you, Wale, when you're ready, and then after Wale, Robert can share his insights on this question.
Could you repeat the question?
The question says this: as learning is quickly moving online, both in organizations and schools, how do we ensure that a chunk of the African population is not left behind, especially those living in areas where access to internet connectivity is expensive or not easily accessible? Because I believe this is one of the major questions that all African L&D professionals will have, you know.
Yeah.
And then I would like to add, especially when sometimes some of the people that we reach out to through our programs may not even be technologically savvy. How do we sort
Thank
of?
you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wale.
Thank you, Baaba. So this is where the use cases are very important because the one answer doesn't fit everything for us in Africa because we are dealing with different sort of challenges. Connectivity is even different in different parts of Africa as well. So I think the first thing that we have to think about is what are the user experience that we use, different use cases that we have. What's the population in terms of spread? What's the educational level? What is the bandwidth? What's the cost of it? But I know that there are quite a number of innovative approach that people are already employing. Be it, and I see someone in the group already putting television and radio. That couple of innovation that has come out from there where learners can actually go on radio, particularly those who attend public schools can actually go on radio and learn. And these are becoming the norm for many people as well. And if you think about the many technology and education startups that we are seeing across Africa, they are cracking it. And I can give you one example of that. So I know that there are a couple of organizations, ULesson is one of them, and I know that there are a couple of others, but they are already developing, digital stick that young kids can take home and plug somewhere. They are developing different sort of tools that's available. So I think that there are different things. There are people who are putting learning stations. So when you go and learn on radio, on TV, you have a small sort of group that you can work with within your clusters. And so how do you get the teachers' education also as you're moving the learners online? What are the other things that are going to be putting in place? So there are technologies already existing in the space. I think what is going to be very important for all of us is what are the use cases that we're thinking about. And I can give you an experience. So I had in one of the programs that we're doing, I didn't consider energy cost, and I realized one of the people would always taking his call in the car, And one day I became curious and I asked a question and said, what happened? And say, oh, I don't have power at home, so I'm charging my phone from the car. And so the point is, we have to get better at understanding the user experience, the use cases, to say, these are the new segments that are showing, these are the emerging learners that are showing, and being able to create a blended format for all of these things. So in some cases, you are going to have to develop, for example, school in a box you send to a village and have the teachers onboarded and they can teach in clusters. In some cases, we have to get the parents to be involved. In certain cases, we have to also do, what we've always known within this group, training of trainers, and how people can take the message down. But there are many functions that we can use now, and there are many technologies. I think Robert can probably share more when he's giving his submission.
Thank you so much, Wale. Robert, is there anything else you'd like to add to Wale's submission?
I think Wale has done the job of...
He said it all.
Yeah. I would just add that I think it's important of collaboration. I think in any group of people want to do anything, MTN and all the networks, I think I have seen a media house collaborate with the community to do advocacy, to get the network they need, or USAID or any donor organization collaborating with teachers to create something. I think this time is a time for us to collaborate and bring about new things, because we have the knowledge of the learning and the development and the skills and the network people. And I saw one of the audience putting in the need for us to collaborate with IT people, and learn more and understand, because once we decide to deliver this learning and also to help schools and all of that to create a learning environment within this COVID period, it's about working together and creating the things that are needed to ensure that these learners get the best results out of what they do. Yes, so the TV, the radio, the newspaper, or even the teachers going for learning programs and coming back are key things that we should continue advocating for.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'd like to ask Kessewaa and Thokozile if they have anything else to add on this topic. If not, yes, please.
Yeah. In fact, I'm glad that he mentioned the collaboration, because I was looking at it from a different question. My question here is, what do we need to do to influence the stakeholders to overcome the challenges? Because we can't absolutely stay like this forever. I know that this is probably raking in probably all their profits, and Africa is just raking in a lot of profit for these organizations. So the conversation needs to go beyond what we need to do. I was just talking to someone this morning, talking about, one of the organizations, one of the telecoms, calling me and asking me about how everything was functioning. I said, I stopped using your network.
Your service, yeah.
And so at the end of the day, why do you pay, let's say $25 or $30 over there? We know our infrastructure is here, and we know we don't have the finance, and yet you want people to pay almost $100, for the same data. There's something needs to be done at a higher level, and I think for me that is where the conversation should go to, and this is where we need to get the influencing stakeholders in the same room and move on this issue, so that we can have a lasting and sustainable solution to this issue.
Thank you so much thank you so much, Kessewaa. Thank you so much, Wale and Robert, for your invaluable insights. And I do have a comment from Mehdi, who says that online facilitating skills are so important today to have impactful training, perhaps as important as the content we teach. Voice, visual, interactive, it is all so important. So thank you so much for sharing that, Mehdi. And thank you so much, my panelists. I'd like to ask Thokozile, do you have anything else to add to what has already been said? If not, I would like to move on to our next question.
Yeah, I have a follow-on comment, which I think builds on what Kessewaa has already said. My view is that the learning and development professionals sitting within organizations, whether they're corporate or public sectors, the sort of end user of the talents of our countries, I think that we have a very powerful role to play in fundamentally changing the construct of education and the definition of what is a decent education at the grassroots level. Because if we don't help our governments realize that continuing to send children to schools where all they're learning is basic maths or basic literacy in a classroom without even electricity, never mind connectivity, condemns these children to a life of poverty. And it really even greatly reduces the chances of economic, viability of students. And I think this is part of where the problem is data and connectivity. They've hit that point where it's a human right. It's very difficult for anyone who will be able to function in the current world that we live in without connectivity. And we need to take that conversation and make it so essential and so basic that we actually don't have to sit and start, architecting around, radio, TV. And yes, those things are important, and we should continue to serve and try and reach people that don't have that. But I do think we have a much bigger advocacy, change agent role. And frankly, our organizations in a combined way have the economic power to actually bring about that very necessary educational reform in our countries and across the continent. And I don't think that we are living up to what the world needs from us at this time. That's the only thing I would add.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I believe, my dear participants, that the lady has challenged us, because this is, and I do have a comment that says, thank you so much for touching on the need for well-rounded and holistic education, Ms. Mpupuni. So thank you so much. I think that comment says it all. And I would like to launch my next poll. Since we've been talking about the obstacles in 2021, well, I hope that this does not skew the results, because we've been talking about technological obstacles, but there are also other obstacles that we may face in 2021. So I'd like you to share with us, what do you foresee as the biggest obstacles that will face the African L&D industry in 2021? Is it proving return on investment? Well, let me start from the top. Is it a lack of internet connectivity? Is it a lack of access to technology? Is it a lack of time? Is it budget constraints? Because, COVID has also meant that budgets for even training, capacity development, and learning and development have shrunk. So is it budget constraints? Is it a lack of employee interest? I mean, is the stress of COVID getting to our participants and employees so much that they're not interested in these things? Is it lack of buy-in from corporate level, or is it also a difficulty in proving what the return on investment will be for our training programs? So what do you foresee as the biggest obstacle to face the L&D industry in Africa in this coming year, 2021? I'll just give us some time to do that, and I will try and go and read more, excuse me, of our chat. And I have a comment here from Amit Mathur, who says a child who has supposed to start schooling in 2020 would be seeing that environment in 2021, hoping that happens. I believe that education starts at home. Empowering parents with the right knowledge to be shared with their kids is important as well. That is so true. That is so true. And I have another comment that says, there is indeed a big technological divide that COVID has exposed. I completely agree that in preventing the harmful effects of the digital divide in our various communities, paying attention to the context of the society is very important. It needs to be done tactfully. One cannot sponsor a village cooperative with laptops to use to communicate. Please give me a second. Yes, to communicate when there is no computer literacy. Resources need to be wisely put to use, perhaps a radio forum or WhatsApp forum. The bridging of the divide needs to be as natural as possible for it to be long-lasting as possible. In that way, communication can still continue effectively through COVID. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that contribution, and that is so spot on. We need to consider the social context of our interventions. And I think the comment about WhatsApp and chat was so spot on, because I've actually witnessed a training program where the facilitator did all the training via Telegram. So everything, the whole workshop was done via text on Telegram. They had a whole workshop, had activities, had a question and answer section, all on Telegram because of issues of internet connectivity. All right, and so I'm about to give maybe 30 more seconds, and then I'm about to close the poll, because time flies when you're having fun. And I cannot believe that we've been here already for 1 hour. It seems like 5 minutes ago when we started this conversation. And so in the next 10 seconds, I will be closing the poll. And then we will look at what we believe the biggest obstacles will be for us as L&D professionals in 2021. And so, majority of us, that is 38% of us, believe that budget constraints will be the biggest obstacle for us in 2021. 10% of us, 24% of us believe it will be a lack of internet connectivity. Excuse me, please. 10% of us believe that it will be a lack of access to technology. Well, 10%, not of us, but of those who answered this poll. 7% believe it will be a lack of employee interest, and 21% believe that the biggest obstacle will be proving return on investments. And it is very interesting that none of us believe that that lack of time or lack of buy-in will be the biggest obstacle to face us in 2021. Very, very interesting. And I believe it gives me, and I'm sure you also listening to us, some food for thought as you plan your activities in 2021. As we plan activities in 2021, I believe this will be very interesting food for thought for us. I do have a comment from Trevor that says change is inevitable. Africa must move from traditional ways of learning and adopt new technologies. I do believe that. That is spot on. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now I would like to ask Robert and maybe Kessewaa this question. What do you see as the emerging trends for L&D professionals in 2021? So maybe I'll start with Robert and I'll come to Kessewaa. And then if Thokozile and Wale have anything to add, they can do that. But Robert and Kessewaa, what do you foresee to be the trends that will emerge for L&D professionals in 2021?
Thank you, Baaba. This is Robert. And first of all, I say that some of the things have been mentioned in the WhatsApp group, and I really share some of the chats group, and I share with it. First of all, is Appen skills. For L&D professionals to learn how to use these tools to get the results that's needed. Because I mean, one of the audience asked a question about fatigue, and I was going to take it from the point of how do I, as an L&D professional, make sure that my clients or the people I'm training are engaged, like how you are doing now, Baaba, as you are doing now, some polls, some new things, introducing all sorts of things. I've attended trainings online where music is played at a point, and there are breaks where there's a facilitator who comes, a well-being person who take us through meditation. So all these things are things that we need to start thinking about. How do we up our skills to ensure that we engage the people who are online with us? Another thing I'll talk about, as has been clearly shown, is how do we ensure that we are able to convince the people who are supposed to put money into learning and development and the new trend? How do we get them on board? You know, because the idea is we know that learning and development budgets are shrinking from the point of view that I come from, because many people would not travel anymore. People will be wondering, why do we even need training? Because there are other sectors suffering. So there's a the need for us to see how we can convince the budget holders, the people at the top, to invest in the new technology, to buy new things, and to ensure that we get part of the process. And I think that we can continue doing research, which is a key thing for us. How do we research? We are doing this poll. I think it's a very important thing. We should even go ahead and write about it, about the experience of this poll, and see how it will influence decision-making in the process that we go along. So for me, these are the 3 key things that I think we should look at in the process, in the new trend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe it was Wale. Wale, what are your views on this, please?
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. I think that's absolutely spot on. I think one other thing, which is also relating to what Robert talked about, the business model has to shift a little bit. What is our pathway toward revenue? If we're seeing that the budgets are shrinking, what are the different ways? We used to sell maybe 3-4 trainings every year to 100 people. Now at $1,000, maybe now we need to sell to 1 million people at $10. And so what are the new ways we can start thinking about that? So what is the business model that we need to start to think about? And I think that's another thing that I'm beginning to see as a new trend is people want short, precise, and something they can also go share. And so how do we as L&D professionals also think in a way to leverage, learning from what we are seeing with the social media move? There are so many things going on now that you were thinking, oh, what is this thing about this challenge that they're doing on Instagram? But there's a lesson there that we can have there. What are some of the ways we can have, and it could be our marketing tools and that can drive people to our website, whether drive to our e-learning platform. What are the new ways we can communicate our essence? And are there new ways we can have small, short messages that becomes like a new way to people to learn? So I think these are some of the things that I feel that would be good. One, the business model, and also becoming very creative in how we create content for learners as well.
Thank you so much for Wale. That was spot on and insightful. And I'd like to ask Kessewaa and Thokozile, do you have anything to add to this? To these submissions from Wale and Robert?
Yes, I have 2 things that I would add in terms of trends that I think we need to be thinking about as L&D professionals. I think the first one is, I think we all need to recognize that learning has moved from an economy of qualifications to an economy of skills, right? And this is very important, particularly in Africa, right? In Africa, we love our qualifications, we love our certificates, and we love our university titles, okay? The whole Harvard alumni, even though you went there for like a 3-day seminar, etc. So when you look at it culturally, when you look at it culturally, there's actually a lot of work to be done to help show people that, yes, it would be great if you went to Harvard, for example, and got an MBA for a year, but maybe this is not as valuable to you in terms of having a great contribution, job, and career longevity as perhaps some of these digital skills courses that cost 6 weeks and maybe are offered by a non-traditional learning provider rather than a recognized university. I think this is a big thing. I think L&D professionals within your organizations, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in helping your people understand what are the skills that are most competitive for their careers within your organization, but within the broader world of work in which you find yourselves, and help to reskill the people according to those skills. Because I think we have a double obligation. Yes, we have an obligation to prepare people to have the skills and mindsets that they need to perform and deliver for our companies, but I think we have a bigger obligation to prepare people to be, economically productive in the emerging world of work. So that's one big one for me. It's like that real shift to a skills obsession rather than a qualification or certificates one. And then the second quick one for me is also that while we've gone virtual, okay, and we have all these oceans of learning libraries. So we have Udemy, I think LinkedIn, etc. There are a lot of learning libraries there. And I think if you are able to get one of those for your organization, that's great, okay? But if you can't, it's also not a big problem, because if you think about MOOCs and the internet and what's available free, there's a lot. And we saw a lot of that in COVID, right? A lot of people made that stuff more visible.
Absolutely.
The trick for me that L&D professionals have to help employees with is crafting learning journeys for them. You know, give them a sort of GPS so they can navigate what's the most relevant learning to me in this ocean of free learning in the digital universe. Because that can get quite paralyzing, you know, for people who are not like self-driven or who don't have really well-defined career paths. So I would also say moving to this idea of learning paths and learning journeys rather than having these virtual learning libraries should definitely be a trend that starts to propagate more broadly. Those would be my two.
Thank you so much. And I think I love it because every time you give a submission, you kind of give us a call to action. And so from what I picked, it's the onus is on us as L&D professionals to make sure that we are concentrating on skills rather than qualifications and certificates. And also it is important that as L&D professionals, L&D teams, we craft learning journeys. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do have a few comments. I have a comment from Diana who says, going forward, L&D incorporating and encouraging more social learning and learning through the workflow in our organizations to add to our virtual and face-to-face learning. Thank you so much. And I also have another comment from Ishmael who says, I think that it is a huge issue overlooked in the discussion of competency building. And I believe that was in relation to saying, when Thokozile mentioned that we should concentrate on skills rather than certificates. And so thank you so much for your insights. And I think that this, as well as the comments, leads me to my third and final poll for the day. And I would just like to find out from you, what do you think the biggest trends in 2021 will be for the L&D industry in Africa? What do you think?
Baaba, before you go on to the next.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to totally agree with what has been said. One of the things, I was looking at this also from the skills point, competencies and all of that. But one of the things that I want us to emphasize is that we have stakeholders that we are dealing with. And it is incumbent on we as learning professionals to understand the business and to understand what they want and what they are attracted to. So most of us who are in this field, we are in it not because we were told that there was a field like that. We are in it because we love it. And in fact, we lose sight of the money aspect sometimes because we are enjoying what we are doing and the impact that we have on people. So if we want to be more influential, understanding the return on investment, how do our stakeholders interpret the return on investment? And then how can we link that to what we as professionals need to do, coming back to Thokozile's statement about improving our improving our technology skills, improving our learning and development skills, because this function still in Africa has not moved much. This is the beginning, and there's so much out there for us to do. So the campaign starts with us, and I'm hoping that using this forum, we will be able to bring learning and the function and the skills, bring them all together for our stakeholders to be able to understand the value that we can bring to the table. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is such a great submission, and I can't believe we would have missed out on it. Thank you so much for that submission. And as I was saying, this is a perfect segue into my third and final poll for the day. And I'd like to find out from you, what do you think the biggest trends in L&D will be in Africa in 2021? Do you think it will be mobile delivery? Do you think it will be about reskilling and upskilling? We've been talking about concentrating on skills, not certificates. Do you believe it will be social or cooperative learning? There was a comment in the chat box about learning together with your colleagues during the flow of work? Do you think that will be the new trend? Do you think it will be virtual learning? Do you think it will be, there's so much in data and analytics and artificial intelligence? Do you believe that will be it? Or do you believe that this poll does not even have any of the things that will be the biggest trend in L&D? Please let us know. What do you think the biggest trends in L&D will be in Africa in 2021? While we are doing that, as usual, I will go over to the chat box and read some of the submissions that we have from our participants, and we do love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate. Use the chat box. Bombard us with your questions, your comments, any clarifications that you may need. We love to hear from you. So I have a comment from Sifosetu. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I didn't do that right. And they are just quoting from Thokozile and saying, absolutely, Dr. Mpupuni, a shift to skills obsession rather than a qualification obsession. I believe that this is it. Yes, thank you so much. And then we do have another comment from Caroline who says, we need such forums, hold these conversations regularly. Thank you so much for that. And at L&D Africa, apart from our main conference, the L&D Africa conference, which is our flagship event of the year, we will be having such conversations and forums and roundtables and webinars quarterly. So please look out. We'll be sending you emails. We'll be sending you invitations. We will be having such conversations about the L&D industry as it pertains specifically to Africa each quarter. And we'll be coming up with white papers and documents that will sort of summarize the conversations that we've had in these discussions, and will give you a tangible document to refer to as and when it is needed. I do have another comment from an Elizabeth K, who says, I totally agree. We need more of these sessions. L&D is going places. Yes, indeed. L&D is going places, and I believe that the African L&D industry is ready and poised to take its rightful place on the world stage. And I believe that this is the time, and we are the generation to see that happen. So exciting times indeed. And I'm going to give it another 10 seconds and I'm going to end this poll. Interesting results that I already see coming up. Interesting results. You have about 10 seconds more to put in your votes if you would like to. And I'm about closing this poll now, and let us take a look at what the results of the poll are. And so, well, like it's expected, most of us, 36% of those who voted believe that virtual learning is going to be the hottest thing that is going to happen to L&D in Africa. And closely followed by that, 34% of us believe it's going to be reskilling or upskilling. And so I'm not surprised, because most of us have skills in virtual, in face-to-face facilitation and face-to-face learning, but we need to upgrade and upskill for virtual and all the different components and the different phases of virtual learning. There are so many different ways to execute a virtual learning program. So I believe that closely linked to that is the need to reskill and upskill for the changes that are occurring in the world. 7% believe it will be mobile delivery. We have another 7% believing that social and cooperative learning is going to take it. We have also, again, 7% believing that artificial intelligence is the next big thing. And 9% of us also believe that analytics and data is the way to go for 2021. And so these are very interesting results. We will share all of that with all our participants. Excuse me, in the coming week.
Baaba.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just wanted to make a comment, and maybe it's a little bit provocative to the list that you gave us, because I believe this almost in my very being, right? I think it's one thing to predict what we think, because we've all just expressed what we think the trend will be, right?
Yeah.
But I would also ask us the question, is that the right trend? You know, does that represent the highest value this function could bring to organizations at this point in time? Right. And I'm thinking of one particular thing, which is why I say that, you know, in my view, the biggest thing that L&D functions, one of the biggest things that L&D functions could do for organizations across the organization is to make open innovation normal, right? To make innovating organizations the job, you know, the obsession, as well as the expectation of every employee. Yeah, we've always admired like the Googles, etc., who've made innovation a culture. And we used to talk about it like it was something special and because it helped to differentiate them. But I think we are all in an economic situation where there's no organization that is going to fail to innovate itself and still survive in the next 5 years. Yeah, innovation has become like a game of survival, not even a game of differentiation. So this is one thing I would like to put towards the, you know, the colleagues in this discussion with us, is that we need to recognize that the role of innovation in organizations has changed, right? And who but us to lead the charge in equipping our organizations with the mindsets and the skills required to make everyone recognize, from a teller, I'm in a bank, right? From a teller to a group executive, making every one of them realize that, one, they not only have the opportunity to innovate, but the obligation to do so. So this is just something I would add to the list that you had.
Thank you so much. And this is why we love platforms like this that give us the opportunity to share ideas. And I have a comment from Mary Bennett that says, love the challenge, Thokozile, well received, we move. And I think this is it. It is important that we impress upon the organizations that we work in, either as part of an L&D team or as an L&D professional who is consulting, the importance of it is an obligation to innovate and to steal directly from your work. That is what you said, Thokozile. It is an obligation to innovate. And thank you so much for that insight. And you've actually led me to what I believe is going to be my final question from me, but my participants, you're welcome to bring on your questions till we close. But I think that my closing question, and I'd like to hear from maybe each of my participants shortly, maybe a 1-minute submission from each of you, is that one of the things that we are very aware of is that the future of work has changed. And that's what you were talking about, Thokozile, that COVID-19 has had its lasting effects. Automation is also on the increase, and new job skills are emerging. And they're like, when you read, there's so much literature on the top 10 skills that will be in the future in 2025. And we are also finding out that human capital is increasingly important. These are the changes in the future of work that we've noticed. And that leads me to my last question to you, which is that in what innovative ways do we think that we can overcome? I'm so sorry. My last question is, how can L&D professionals in Africa prepare themselves for the future of work? So we've talked about all of this. We've talked about the future of L&D, and we're even talking about how the future of work is shifting. So I'm an L&D professional. I've come to this panel discussion. I've heard all the challenges and the thought-provoking insights that have been submitted here today. And my question is, how can I prepare myself for the future of work in the future of the L&D industry in Africa? I think I'll start with Wale. I'll come to you, Thokozile, then Kessewaa, and then Robert, you will end with us. We will summarize and we will close after this. I'm so sad that we have to be ending, but we have to stick to time. And so, Wale, when you are ready, how can I position myself as an L&D professional in 2021?
Thank you, Baaba. And it's just been a lot of opportunity to learn from everyone today. I think for me, one big takeaway for me is how do I begin to leverage technology as it's shifting, and how do I begin to leverage technology, and also how do we begin to segment the new emerging learners that would come? So the ones who are learning, who are the 5-year-old, they are going to be different. They're going to learn. And so for me, the two things I'm focusing on a lot more this year, and as I'm looking forward, is that the role of technology in the work we're doing, and secondly, what are the different user experiences that we need to anticipate in the future? And it cuts across, and we should be curious to find out what is happening in other sectors, be in banking, because there's a lot of lesson from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wale. That was very, very insightful. And I would like to now hear from you, Thokozile. How can we prepare ourselves as L&D professionals?
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Wale, for speaking about technologies. That is definitely an area of focus for myself. Understanding how, machine learning, robotics, and all of that stuff can be applied to make learning and development more effective. So I'm a very big fan of everyone getting up to speed on that. What I would add to it is the one thing for me that has stood out over the last year and a half, even a little bit before COVID, was that the level of business insight that you need to have as an L&D professional in order to be effective in your role, I believe has gone exponential. Because if you look at our past, right, we would go to business and almost like get this shopping list from them. These are the skills they need, etc. Then we would go and find a way to build those skills, etc. But business disruption is happening in real time right now. So there's almost like no time. It's not like your business, customers who you consult with have had time to come up with competitive strategies, etc. that you're now servicing. So as an L&D professional, you have to be watching the competitors in your market, right? Who's winning in your industry, in your market, and define what are the skills or attributes that organization has that your organization doesn't. And from that point, start also architecting learning strategies that lead your organizations. So I definitely think that the times where L&D were responding to what business said are a little bit behind us. I think we need to be in the forefront together with our businesses, trying to figure out what is the competitive advantage that our business needs to win in the markets. And then we figure out the play that we can as L&D play in kind of making that happen. That's what I would add.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will move to Kessewaa. Please share with us, what are your thoughts on this last question?
Well, I look at the word reading. I always think about reading, and I start off using the R as read. You have to read, but at the same time, you have to take risk, because we in this profession, most of us just got in it by accident. We didn't go to school for that. So we need to take risks. The E for me is to engage. You need to engage at all levels. You need to engage all functions. You need to engage all the stakeholders that you think will have an impact on where you want to go and how you can support their vision. Then advocacy. For me, A is to advocate the competencies that we know are coming up. Remember that I look at myself as, okay, you have your executives, and they have their visions and they have their missions. And we have all the people who are supposed to be driving all of these. And for me, I plug myself in the middle. I'm going to take this vision and I'm going to make sure that I can understand where they want to get to. And I have to come up with the creative ways for the people who are going to do it or implement it to understand it. How do I stay in the middle, go up and go down, and be able to let the people enjoy it at the same time we are doing that? So creating and recreating. Then the last thing for me is the D. We need to develop ourselves, at least set ourselves goals. This year, minimum two key skills that we've talked about. I mean, I think we've talked about digital, data, virtual, this, that. So which one or which two do we as individuals want to focus on? And if we continuously do that and develop ourselves, then we can be at the table and have the necessary conversations with the people who are holding the money. Because, you know, we don't hold the money. We try to take some of the money to help them get to their goals. So for me, we just need to stay in readiness. And the only way we can stay in readiness is to read, take risk, engage, advocate, and then make sure that we ourselves, we develop tangible key skills that people can actually recognize. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Kessewaa. This has indeed been wonderful. And Robert, last but not least, we'll hear from you, your final words, and we will bring this discussion to a close. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you so much for all the great panelists who have gone before me. And to start off where Kessewaa ended, which is you can't give what you don't have. There's nothing that as an individual, as a learning professional, you can go out and decide to give when you haven't prepared. So for me, my first point is preparation. We need to prepare. We need to plan as learning and development professionals. What are my goals for the year? Where am I going? Who am I reaching out to? We need to know and prepare for that. Second, we need to understand context. I think that as learning and development professionals, for me, from experience, having trained in other countries and all around, it's important to understand context, especially with COVID happening, what is happening in different spaces. What is happening in South Africa is different from what's happening in Ghana. So what are the contexts that are happening now, and how do I develop myself to meet those needs in those contexts and different areas? The one and other thing is collaboration. I think collaboration is very, very important. We shouldn't forget that, especially in this space where there are different things coming. Now we are talking about IT, we are talking about village, we are talking about power. So it means that we need to network and grow our bands to reach different people and find a new knowledge in their space and how we can use it as learning and development professionals to improve upon ourselves and meet the needs of the people that we are talking to and we are working for. The other thing is upgrade. I think we've talked about this already, the need for us to upgrade our skills. I'll take advantage of this opportunity as part of the LPI team and the Rainbow team to say that LPI is available. We are training, we are certifying, and it is available in Africa. So join us, let's upgrade your skill. Let's make sure that we have this opportunity to certify you, your organization, whatever thing that there is, we need to get certified. And that is one thing that will help us grow the business within Africa. This year, let's take advantage of that. My last thing is going consistent learning. Let's not stop learning. Learning is important, and learning is not only by books and it's by even interacting with people. For me, I develop my skills or the learning things I do by looking at people and what they will do. So constant learning wherever we go, in the bank and wherever we go, what we can learn from there and put in the skill set that we have, and we'll grow stronger as we go together as learning and development professionals. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Rainbow Consult and the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much, my panelists, Wale, Kessewaa, Thokozile. Thank you so much for such, time has flown and an hour and a half have passed by so very quickly. And some of the things I have learned today so much is that it's time for us, this is the time for us to show the proof of our concepts about online and virtual and moving everything and innovating in our field. We must invest in creating the right mindsets for our organizations. And we also talked about the fact that international companies have had a softer landing, and COVID has given L&D professionals the opportunity to drive strategy and support executives in creating strategy. We also talked about how we need to combine online and face-to-face learning, and we need a lot of research and data to back all these things that we are doing. We also talked about how we need to get stakeholders involved in the drive to move things to virtual, and how it is important that we talk to the telcos, the regulators, anybody, while it is we talked about the fact before that we can reach people who don't have access to technology using TVs and radios, but while doing that, we make sure that we are also taking part in advocacy to ensure that people are getting technologically savvy, that people have access to internet and providers during this session. And we talked about how learning has also moved from qualifications, from an economy of qualifications to an economy of skills, and how it is important that we craft learning journeys. And then Robert also talked about the importance of positioning ourselves, lastly, in upskilling, and he took the words right out of my mouth, because I was about to talk about the next thing, which is that Rainbow Consults, that is who are the conveners of the L&D Africa platform, as well as L&D Africa conference. We are proud to be partners, business partners of the Learning and Performance Institutes in Africa. And one of our offerings with the LPI is that we are offering a facilitation, a certification program from the LPI, which is the Certificate in Online Learning Facilitation. That is the name of the course that we are offering from the LPI, among many others. But the one that is imperative to our conversation today is the COVE, which is a Certificate in Online Learning Facilitation. And believe me, it is not just about the certificate. We've talked about that. Thokozile mentioned that at length. It is not just about the certificate, but you will gain real skills in online facilitation. How do you keep your participants involved? How do you even structure online learning? All of that is addressed, and many more are addressed in this course. And this course is good for anyone who leads meetings, webinars, workshops, etc. online. And it's a 10-week course that starts on the 24th of February. That's our first course for the year. Our first cohort is a 10-week course that starts on the 24th of February. I believe we actually also have another session that starts on the 5th of March, and you, at the end of the day, become an LPI, Learning and Performance Institute, certified online learning facilitator. So register now. You can make inquiries at info@rainbow-consult.com. info@rainbow-consult.com. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much to my dear participants for staying with us during this 90 minutes. Your insights have been invaluable, and we couldn't have had this conversation without you. The panelists and the moderator couldn't have sat here and had this conversation without you. So we thank you so much for sparing your time and joining yet another Zoom session and making time to be with us. We really do appreciate this. Now we are just about ending, and so I'm just going to give us some information about logging off. You will see on the lower bottom of your screen a red button that says leave. You can click on that and leave the meeting, and click on leave meeting, and then that will be the end. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in today's webinar. We look forward to hearing from you in the other webinars that we may be having. As I said, we will be having a session every quarter. And so please stay tuned, and we hope that you enjoyed yourself and that you join us again. Once again, my name is Baaba Jackson, and it has been a pleasure being here with you today. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much, and goodbye.